Okay, it's time to talk about the Mi 10 because I think that it's in a little bit of a weird spot. So the Xiaomi Mi 10 and Mi 10 Pro are the company's brand new mass market flagship. You know, you're probably familiar with the entry-level Redmi devices, and then you've also got the high-end experimental Mi Mix devices, and then you've got the bread and butter flagship, which is the Mi flagship. And the Mi 10 and Mi 10 Pro, well, they slide in as the latest entries into this very important smartphone lineup. Now, the thing that has pretty much always been core with the Mi flagship is that they've always provided excellent specs and performance for an excellent price point. And if you look at the new Mi 10 series, especially the Mi 10 Pro that I got to spend a little bit of time with, you can tell that this smartphone definitely is a very capable flagship device. And I think a great place to start with this would be with the performance. So the Mi 10 Pro is powered by a Snapdragon 865 processor. It supports 5G, and it is just like a beast of a processor. It also has 8 gigs of LPDDR5 memory and also 256 gigs of internal UFS 3.0 storage. That means that this smartphone has excellent performance. It is also really good for gaming. Like, I threw every game that I could think of at it, and it ran everything at like really high frame rates at the highest graphics settings, which is great. I guess that's not super surprising because it is, after all, being powered by the most powerful processor that Qualcomm makes. On top of that, the Mi 10 Pro also features a new display. So the new screen is a 6.67-inch AMOLED panel that is curved on both sides, like most modern Android flagships right now, and it looks really good. I believe it has 100% coverage of the DCI-P3 color gamut. It also has a peak brightness of 1200 nits, which makes it really bright, and it also has like really nice colors, and it's very sharp, even though it's like pushing a full HD plus resolution. Personally, I'm still a little bit on the fence about the whole curved screen display because yeah, it looks really cool and helps it sort of stand out in the sea of like mid-range or premium mid-range smartphones. But with how slim the bezels are and how much of the screen actually curves to the side, you're actually losing quite a lot on the top and the bottom of the screen if you're viewing something in like full screen in landscape mode. Plus, there's also like the issue of accidental touching, which I didn't really have a big issue with, but I know a lot of people don't like curved screens because of this. Nevertheless, the screen is still very nice, it looks good, and I think the coolest thing about it is that it has a 90Hz refresh rate. So it's not quite 120Hz, but 90Hz is enough of a difference from like a 60Hz panel that you can experience the extra smoothness of like swiping through it or like, just using the phone in general. And then we've got the upgraded quad camera system at the back of the Mi 10 Pro. So you're getting a 108 megapixel main camera with a wide angle lens. You're also getting a 20 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. You're getting a 12 megapixel telephoto camera, as well as an 8 megapixel secondary telephoto camera, which combines and works together with the other cameras to give you 10 times hybrid zoom, as well as a maximum zoom of 50 times. This brings it right in line with most Android flagships that are out right now, and I have to say that the camera performance is pretty good. Shots in daylight look nice, they're crisp, they've got pretty good dynamic range, though I do wish that the highlight control was a little bit better, but then again, this is like a problem that you will see on a lot of flagship Android smartphones, even some of the best in the industry. I was, however, very impressed with the 108 megapixel shooting mode because when you take a photo in that mode versus like a photo in the regular mode, like you can really see the difference. In the 108 megapixel photo, you can really just punch all the way in and it still looks really crisp. There's just so much resolution there for you to work with. But the thing that I liked about it was that the photo looked very natural. So it doesn't seem quite as processed as the regular photo, so like the clarity is not so high. It doesn't look like maybe artificially sharpened, but there is just so much resolution. Of course, the regular camera does a good job with capturing sharpness, but if you punch in, like, it doesn't have nearly as much resolution. There is also a night mode which works and is, it's okay, but I wouldn't say that it's the best in the industry. Overall though, the camera is very capable, and I would say that it can hang with some of the best in the market right now, and it also has the ability to shoot 8K videos, which is something that we saw debut on the Samsung Galaxy S20. Up front, in a tiny little punch hole, you've got a 20 megapixel selfie camera, which takes pretty good photos. There is also a one button to clear all of the beautification, which is something that I definitely appreciate. And of course, all of this performance would be for nothing if the smartphone didn't last, but the nice thing is that the Mi 10 Pro does have a pretty decent 4500 mAh battery. Of course, I would have liked to see like 5000, because who doesn't want a bigger battery? But the upside for this smartphone is that it does support 50-watt fast wired charging and 30-watt fast wireless charging. Interestingly though, the smartphone does come with a 65-watt charging brick, which is a bit extra, but the smartphone only supports 50 watts fast charging, so that's something you should note of. Oh, and the Mi 10 does come with reverse wireless charging, but personally I've just never been a fan of it because number one, the battery is not that big anyway, and number two, reverse wireless charging is like, how often are you ever going to use that, Now though, I want to talk about the Mi 10 Pro's build, which is like easily one of my favorite things about this smartphone. I think that it is probably the best built Mi flagship smartphone that I've used so far. It's like, it feels really well put together, it's got the same sort of curved front and back glass with metal frame in the middle that would remind you of like, a high-end Samsung flagship, and that is like really, really good praise. Of course, I would say that maybe the seam between the glass and the frame could be a little bit flusher, a little bit more flush, but overall, it's just like it has a good weight, it has a nice premium feel, and it's great. I also love the frosted back, which also, it makes the phone a bit slippery, but it looks good and the texture is just really nice to hold. Unfortunately though, even though the build is like so nice and the buttons are so clicky and everything feels so well put together, the Mi 10 Pro does not come with an IP rating for dust and water resistance. I don't know why, because I feel like at this point, if you're gonna have a high-end Android flagship smartphone, it should have IP67 or 68 dust and water resistance, because that's just so useful. So it's a little bit disappointing that the Mi 10 Pro does not feature these. What I do like though is the fact that the Mi 10 Pro now comes with a really solid set of stereo speakers. So for the longest time, I think the Mi flagships have always had really like subpar speakers, and most of them in fact don't even have like an earpiece to bottom firing stereo speaker combo. But the Mi 10 Pro really takes that up a notch. So instead of using the earpiece and bottom firing speaker combo like most flagships, they actually have two speakers, one at the top and one at the bottom of the smartphone. And these speakers, like to my ears, they sound pretty even, so they work together to produce like a really nice full sound and really great volume. You shouldn't be flying a drone when it's raining anyway. Luckily it's not. Okay, look at this beautiful sky. But I have been told, or at least I have seen reviews saying that this little drone doesn't handle bright sunlight very well, and this might be a bit of a problem lah. But anyway, let's start flying it. Comparing it to something like the OnePlus 8 Pro, the OnePlus 8 Pro really sounded a little bit harsh at max volumes, but the Mi 10 Pro just sounds really nice and full. But there is a caveat. So the problem with the new speaker setup is that the top speaker can be easily blocked with your hand if you're not careful. So especially if you're like gaming, or if you're holding your smartphone in a certain kind of way that is maybe more comfortable, it's like really easily blocked. And once it's blocked, you're not getting like that nice stereo speaker setup. So you have to be very careful with the way that you hold the smartphone. Would I count that as like a con? I don't think so, because I think the trade-off is that you're getting like a pretty solid set of speakers, though not quite as good as like proper front-facing stereo speakers, but they're really good by today's standards, and some of the best that I've heard, especially on an Android smartphone. And then to really round the smartphone out, you've got an in-display fingerprint scanner, which works pretty well as an IR blaster, which is I think really rare on high-end flagship smartphones, and it's something that really only Xiaomi really does. So it's super useful for people who use their smartphones as like remotes for like, you know, their household appliances or whatever else. So as you can see across the board, the Mi 10 Pro is definitely a really capable smartphone. It's probably one of the most capable smartphones that the company has ever pushed out. But here comes the problem. The Mi 10 Pro and the Mi 10 are actually expensive smartphones, especially by Xiaomi standards. So to give you an idea, the Mi 10 starts at 2,799 ringgit for the version with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. The Mi 10 with 256 gigs of storage, that is priced at 2,999 ringgit. And then the one that I tested, the Mi 10 Pro with 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, that is priced at 3,899 ringgit. This means that I think for the first time ever, we don't have a Mi flagship that is below 2,000 ringgit. The Mi 9, for example, last year, both versions were priced at 1,699 and 1,999 ringgit respectively, none of which cracked the 2,000 ringgit price point. Obviously, the Mi 10 Pro and the Mi 10 are definitely big upgrades over the Mi 9, but the price jump is also really big. And you know, having spent some time with the Mi 10 Pro, like I started thinking about, okay, what am I comparing this smartphone to? Like, what are its competitors? Well, the first thing that jumped to mind were the new OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro. So the OnePlus 8, you know, competes like pretty much directly with the Mi 10, and then the OnePlus 8 Pro competes pretty much directly with the Mi 10 Pro. So if you want to get the OnePlus 8 Pro with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, that is like 200 ringgit less than the Mi 10 Pro. So the trade-off is on the Mi 10 Pro, you get double the storage, really nice speakers, and whereas on the OnePlus, you're getting that 120Hz screen and you're saving 200 ringgit. Honestly, between those two phones, it's a little bit too close for me to call right now. Personally, my preference would be with the UI, so I would probably go with the OnePlus 8 Pro because I prefer Oxygen to MIUI, but you know, then again, that's like a personal preference thing. So then I started thinking like, what else am I comparing this smartphone to? And then the next phone that came to mind was the Samsung Galaxy S20 and S20 Plus. So the S20 is priced at 3,599 ringgit, whereas the S20 Plus is 3,999 ringgit. That means for 100 ringgit extra, you can get a Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus, and that comes with, you know, Samsung's ecosystem features. They've got the Quad HD screens, they've got probably just as capable of a camera and maybe an even more like smooth camera app experience, and then you've also got, you know, stuff like water resistance. It's like a really well-rounded smartphone, and that is competing with pretty much directly with the Mi 10 Pro. Now, that's not something that I ever thought I would have to consider with a mass market Mi flagship, because they've always operated way below, you know, some of the high-end premium sort of big brand smartphones like Samsung and Apple. But right now, they're right up there, and I don't know if that means that the Mi 10 Pro is as good of a flagship smartphone as, like, you know, some of the Samsungs in the market. And I guess that really put things into perspective for me, because Xiaomi has pretty much built their entire smartphone brand up as this company that can give you like a lot of the specs from the high-end flagship smartphones at a much more affordable price point. And you know, they've gained a cult following because of that, and most of their fans like their smartphones because of this fact. But now that it's priced so close to even some of the most expensive devices in the market, what does that mean for their fans? Like, I don't know if that will go down well with them. And personally, I'm still quite on the fence because I don't know how to feel about the new Mi 10 and Mi 10 Pro. But that's what I think, you know. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so make sure you leave them down there. Are you a longtime Mi fan? Like, what do you think of the Mi 10 and Mi 10 Pro? You know, share all your thoughts down there. But this is all that I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the notification bell icon so that you'll be informed whenever we post a brand new video. You can also like us on Facebook, or if you want to always keep up with us, our home on the internet is at soyachinchao.com. Till the next video, I'm Rory, and I'll see you then. Bye!